Hey everybody, it's Pepper, and welcome back to another spooky story Sunday. Today's story is from Idaho. It is called Work Experience, and it is written by Selene. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's spelled Sellene. This story was written back in 2014, so let's get started. After graduating high school, I got a job during the summer months before going to college, and then I would have to go to part-time work, mostly weekends. I graduated with a CNA certification and was hired at the local nursing home. After working there for about a month, I was on night shift so that I could attend classes during the day and work during the night, as long as I didn't have school the next morning. Some of my coworkers told me about a little girl spirit. The story behind the little girl was that she visited the residents about a week before they were going to pass away. Having had other previous paranormal experiences, this wasn't a, yeah, okay, whatever story. I kept an open mind on things like these. Well, a couple nights later when I was working, at about 2:30 or 3 o'clock a.m., I heard men talking down one of the hallway branching off of the nurse's station. I looked up from my charting and asked the nurse and one of the other CNAs if they heard that also. They both nodded. I decided to go investigate because I was concerned if one of the residents was awake. I didn't want them to try and get up and risk falling. The other CNA was watching the other call lights for me while I was investigating. After a room-to-room check, everyone was asleep and there were no TVs or radios going on. I let my coworkers know, and we all agreed it was probably some of the residents that had passed away just wanting to talk with people. Well, fast forward about 3 or 4 months of working there. I was working on a different hallway and was doing my 2 a.m. rounds, checking on residents and safety checks. I got to the end of the hallway, last room on the left, Larry's room. Names are changed for privacy. I got all my supplies ready for changing him and turning him. He had trouble moving and talking, but if you gave Larry enough time, he could communicate with simple sentences and nodding and shaking of his head. I was doing my work with Larry, and he kept looking at the corner of his room, between his sliding glass door and his closet. I asked, "Larry, what are you looking at?" He replied, "The little girl." I asked him, "Really?" Larry nodded his head yes and smiled at the corner of the room. I asked him, "Does the little girl have a name?" Again, Larry nodded his head and said, "Rachel." I then asked him what she looked like. He replied, "Blonde pigtails with a blue dress." I said hi to Rachel and smiled down at Larry. Then I see a tear in his eyes. I asked Larry why he was tearing up, and he said, "She wants to play." I told him and Rachel that it was bedtime and that they could play in the morning. After I was done repositioning Larry, I cleaned up my supplies and walked back towards the nurse's station to document what cares I've done to which people. I then asked my coworkers what the residents said about the girl and any other information they had on what she looked like or if she had a name. They said she has blonde hair and a blue dress, sometimes seen with a doll in her arms. As you previously read, when I first learned about the little girl spirit, they never told me what she looked like or what she wore. About a week later, after attending my classes, and that Friday night, a week has passed since I worked, I was again on that hallway with Larry and some other residents. I was walking down the hallway to Larry's room, and I looked up from my paper that I wrote all my notes on, and seen a little girl around his room's doorway. I started tearing up after the initial shock factor settled down, and started doing my work with Larry. He was also tearing up, and we looked at each other, and didn't really need words to communicate. We both knew his time was coming, and he was ready. He said to me that on my last rounds, "Rachel is ready for me, and I'm ready to go and play." I looked into his wise old eyes and said, "I know, Larry. You two will have so much fun together for a long time. Goodbye." He was smiling, and I knew he was finally content. He was locked in a body that had broken down on him and wouldn't move or work anymore. 2 days later, he was on comfort care. The next week when I went to work, he had passed away. I was so happy that I had a chance to see the little girl and know that his time was coming to have the chance to say goodbye. After Larry passed away, I could always feel a presence in that room, and it wasn't a bad presence, and it wasn't all the time. I like to think that it was Larry just stopping in to look at his old home, and possibly me. The end. Well, that was a very heartwarming story, I think, and I think it's because at one point I did work in a nursing home. I was in the kitchen area. I wasn't a nurse. I'm not CNA or anything, but like, I get it. Like, when you work in like retirement centers, you do like develop these relationships with these older people, and it's very heartfelt. It's heartbreaking that they pass because you grow so close to them, but it's very heartfelting when you know that they're very comfortable, passing. And not just in like retirement homes, but if you're like related to like maybe a grandmother or a great aunt or something that is just very uncomfortable and just ready to go, and you know that they, passed away in such content and happiness and positivity for what's to come after. It's very warming. I think it's really cool how she got to see the little girl. Even though it kind of scared me at first, because it's like she said, and she has written other stories too, but she was saying how, like whoever sees the little girl, they die like a week after. So I don't know if she's sensitive to those things. I mean, she did say she's had paranormal experiences before, right? Did she say that? Yeah, she said she had previous experiences before. So she's probably very open to those things, so that's how she might have been able to see it. And she and Larry were pretty close, I guess. That's what she was saying. And they just had like this open, communication. I think the little girl felt comfortable with her showing herself to whoever wrote whoever wrote this. But I just think that's such a cute story, and it's not scary at all. I did get chills though reading it, but it was very heartwarming, and I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you guys ever experienced anything like that? Have you ever worked or visited a retirement center? I've heard so many different things about retirement centers, like, being haunted, and it kind of makes sense. A lot of people die there, and a lot of people that have died there have spent years there. Working in one, I've heard different stories at the one that I worked in. They weren't they weren't like that scary. I've never experienced anything in that retirement home when I worked there, but I've heard like in the kitchen, like the coffee pots flew off one time, like years before I started, and just like things like that, but who knows if they were true or not. People say anything especially because around there it was kind of dramatic, like it was just full of drama there, so it was probably just to like hyping up people, I don't know, but I do believe a lot of retirement centers are haunted, and it's really cool how, like, I wonder why the little girl that was there, like, was she like, I don't know, because the one that I worked in, it wasn't just for retirement people, even though the majority of it was the retirement, but there was also the rehabilitation where people were like there for like rehab to if they're like hurt or something. It was kind of like a hospital almost, but they stayed there. So I wonder if the little girl like had something wrong with her and she died there, or maybe like it was a house previous to it. So that's really interesting. I really would like to know more of the history on the little girl and why she's there. But, those answers probably will never be answered. So, but it's a really cute story. I really enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think, and I know I said this before, and if you've ever worked in a retirement center, have had any experiences there, let me know down in the comments, and I will see you guys next time for another Spooky Story Sunday. And also, don't forget to like up this video, subscribe, hit the bell for more notifications when I post up and upload videos. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!